guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 16 on DraftKings. We're going to talk about the top stacks that you should be using in tournaments in NFL DFS this week. I'm going to tell you ahead of time. There are two reasons that this is a very ugly week, and it might be a very low scoring week unless the chalk somehow slaps in every single way possible. One, the weather outside is frightful. The stacks are somewhat delightful. So that's one problem that could mute the scoring, because with 4 games projected to be at 0 degrees Kelvin this weekend, you're looking at a rock for a football. Teams may not be able to throw it as effectively. They may not be able to do a lot of things. They may resort to just running the football a ton. So like scores could be lower as games could play faster. 2, DraftKings has, I don't know if DraftKings did it on purpose or if it's the cold or if it's the shorter slate with a 10-game slate. There's not a lot of really projectable values on this slate overall that are comfortable projectable values, especially those that are indoors. That could hold scoring down as well. So it's kind of a weird slate. We're going to look at all of it. We're going to build a pick'em card over on Underdog Fantasy. We're going to plug everything into the lineup builder over on Fantasy Labs. There's links down below in the description if you want to click show more to find all of those things. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let me know what your favorite stocking stuffer is that you could find this Christmas week. And let's go.
He's a legend.
The Smizzgang Listener League is up. It is going to go on Saturday. This is for the main slate. It has always been a Sunday league. It has moved to a Saturday league because that's where the main slate is this weekend. So it is 3,000 people wide, large, big. You got to go to smizzle.tv/links in order to get there. I would suggest you do it because if we fill it, they'll keep it this size moving forward. Otherwise, it's going to get smaller as the season comes to a close in a couple of weeks. So $10 to enter, 3 max, $30,000 in the prize pool. Cannot find it in the lobby. It is a no-rake league. It's the best league that exists on DraftKings. I'll shout out the top 10 finishers on the fantasy football channel on Monday on the recap video. So go to smizzle.tv/links and get your seats today. We're going to take a look at the weather because I'm not a weatherman, but you know who is? Kevin Roth, friend of the show. Kevin Roth, definitely a weatherman. This includes the Thursday night football game, but like yellows, I'm okay with yellows. Yellows don't really matter all that much usually for what it's like. Yellow is fine. Houston, Tennessee, it's cold, but like whatever. New Orleans and Cleveland, red. You don't see red very often from Kevin. Orange is usually like something where like your ears need to perk up and you got to pay attention to what's going on. This is a free page over on rotogrinders if you want to check it out. rotogrinders.com/weather/NFL. Just Google like rotogrinders weather NFL and you'll find it. Seattle, Kansas City, temp in the single digits, 10-mile-per-hour wind. Cincinnati, New England Patriots, temp in the 20s, 15-mile-an-hour wind. Detroit, Carolina, temp in the 20s. Atlanta, Baltimore, who cares? Neither team's going to throw the ball. Las Vegas against Pittsburgh, like not a main slate game. Also this one, not a main slate game, but it's green. So a lot of weather, a lot of super duper cold stuff going on this slate. So let's focus on an indoor stack for the stack of the week. Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that we have kind of worried the whole season that he has not had or had not had a game over 25 DraftKings points. So like we've talked about how quarterbacks are like Taco Bell and we use them to get to the more expensive, higher correlated items that really score a lot of points and break slates. But in order for that to happen, you need to get like 25 plus, 30 plus points out of your quarterback that you roster. In the last 2 weeks, he has finally gotten us home with that with 37.4 points against Indianapolis, 28 DraftKings points against Detroit. Now look, neither of these are very good defenses against the pass, and the Giants are a very good defense. They have not really allowed a lot of quarterbacks to score over 20 DraftKings points this year. Maybe none, but they have allowed multiple touchdown passes in a bunch of previous games coming up to this one. So they have been a bend but don't break defense. However, this game does project to have a pretty high total. The total in this one is 47.5. Vikings favored by 3. And the Giants should be able to score the ball against Minnesota because everybody can score the ball against Minnesota, which allows us to have a little bit more access. If you look at this defense, they just haven't stopped anything. 300 yards passing, 300 yards passing, 300 yards passing, 300 yards passing, 171 on the ground, 134 on the ground, 120 on the ground, 150 on the ground. They're a really bad defense. So like the more the opponent scores, the more that Minnesota has to push. And it's going to be a nice, balmy 71.5 degrees inside the dome in Minnesota. Guess what? We can stack him with Justin Jefferson. Usually is a pretty good idea. Averaging 25.3 DraftKings points in the year, over 30 points in 3 of the last 4 games. You can definitely afford him this week. There's enough cheap running backs on the slate. There's enough cheap wide receivers on the slate, and specifically tight ends, for you to be able to get up to a Justin Jefferson part of a double as well. Adam Thielen at 5,300 is a stacking option, but his targets are going to yo-yo. 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. We have seen KJ Osborne really blossom lately, not expecting 16 targets. They were behind by 78 points at halftime last week and somehow came back and won. Don't fact check me. You guys know that I'm close. It's all about being in the right ballpark when we talk about these facts and figures. But the last few weeks, he has contributed a lot more. 5 catches on 5 targets against Detroit, and operates as the third option in this passing game attack. Put him in the lineup. And then at tight end, they gave up a 2nd-round pick for TJ Hawkinson, and boy, have they utilized him. It has not really translated to a whole lot of touchdowns, with only 1 coming since he's been on the team. But we've seen him post monster games before, and as good as the Giants have been on the outside, you do kind of want to attack him on the inside. So, like, going with a Hawkinson JJ stack is not going to be a bad way to capture all of the value around Kirk Cousins. And he has another 300+ yard game with 2 or 3 touchdowns in this one. And they do go to the guys that you're hoping for. Very easy to get bring back players on the Giants. One of the higher totaled, closely contested games. Let's go over to Underdog Fantasy and build a pick'em card around this game. If you do not have an account at underdogfantasy.com, you can use promo code ALSMIZZLE, that's one word, ALSMIZZLE, and get up to a $100 deposit bonus on your first deposit to the site that you can then use as a free bet on a pick'em card. They have higher and lowers based around fantasy. They pay out 3x, 6x, 10x, and 20x. Let's go with higher than 207 passing yards. Let's go higher than, I need 1 touchdown out of Saquon this week. That's all, just 1. Let's go with a receiving touchdown. Let's go higher than that. He's got it. Touchdown or higher. Chat, quick, help. Chat, which one do you want? We're betting on JJ here. I'm going to go higher on this. I'm going to go higher on, well, if we're going to do higher on both of these yards, then I got to have higher than 267 passing yards, right? Y'all want the TD? Fine, we'll do the touchdown. Get rid of that. Put that there. We'll do this for $50. I'm going to take the insurance on this one. I'll take 2.5. No insurance. We're just going to win. We're going to hit all 5. That's what we're going to do. Submit this, confirm, go check out everything that they have over at Underdog right now. Geno Smith. Now, this is another one of the super cold games, but there's not a lot of wind. Typically speaking, when it comes to weather, we want to focus on and avoid games where there's like 25+ mile per hour winds. Seattle already a pass over expectation team on the season, one of the pass heaviest teams on the year. And Geno Smith has done fantastic. 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Literally nobody saw this coming, probably outside. I don't even think Pete Carroll saw this coming. There's no way. Aside from the dud last week against San Francisco, but we've talked about it. Like, look, guys, throw out games against San Francisco when you're game log hunting. They're just too good of a defense. I'm fine excluding that, because when we do, we find that, like, look at all these games, the 5 previous where he's got 20+ DraftKings points. And we have an opportunity with Tyler Lockett out. He was soaking up an awful lot of the targets. He had touchdowns in like, 6 of his last 7 games outside of that San Francisco game, including that San Francisco game or without that San Francisco game. DK Metcalf averaging over 10 targets per game this year. 10.4, I believe, to be exact. Now, his ADOT has come way down. They're not utilizing him as far down the field as they used to because as bad as Russ has been this year, he has historically thrown a much better deep ball than has Geno Smith. They have changed the offense to reside more around Geno Smith's skill set. One thing that is working in DK Metcalf's favor and should see a rise in the amount of touchdowns that he has scored. He leads the league with 20 end zone targets. The easiest way to up your touchdowns is to target your wide receivers when all they have to do is catch the ball for it to turn into a touchdown. All of his other targets, he has to catch it, turn around, beat somebody, break a tackle, and then run to the end zone, right? When you throw it to him in the painted area, all they got to do is one thing: catch the ball, done, touchdown. He has 20 of them, only has 6 touchdowns on the year. So, like, he should have scored more touchdowns than he has this season. With Lockett out, he projects to see a higher percentage of the market share of targets. He is probably the best option. He is definitely a cash game option. And if you're stacking with Geno Smith or He'd be the primary bring back on the other side as well. Filling the spot for Godwin, I am going to assume he does have a question by his name, but he practiced on a limited basis on Wednesday, so dealing with wrist and ankle injuries, 4,300 makes for a very good value play who should play more snaps and run more routes this week. We will dig deeper if and when we have to, especially at tight end. Noah Fant did not practice on Wednesday. Typically speaking, I ignore Wednesday practice reports, especially and specifically when it's regarding veteran players. It's usually a day off. However, this is a Saturday main slate, not a Sunday main slate, which means that the Wednesday practice is a little bit more ear-popping for me to have to pay attention to, because Wednesday equals Thursday on a shorter week like this one. So we'll monitor this injury. If Noah Fant's in, he pops as a really good value play. If Noah Fant is out, then Will Dissly is probably going to run around a whole lot more, and at 2,700 will be extremely chalky as a stacking option with Geno Smith. On the other side of this game, we have Patrick Mahomes, who has thrown for about 4,500 yards so far this year with 35 touchdowns, albeit doing them in different ways than he has in the past, where like he had a lot of long touchdowns previously when he had the Tyreek Hill at his disposal. He does not have that anymore, so his touchdowns this year are much more of the shorter variety, lower ADOT throws, but converting so many of them into catches last week, 36 of 41, so ridiculously efficient against Houston, who definitely increases the efficiency. Now, typically speaking, I do not allow running backs to be involved in a stack with the quarterback. It's a way to get off of running back chalk and to correlate with the players that correlate well with the quarterback. But when a running back sees over 15% of the market share of targets, as Jerick McKinnon has for the last 2 weeks, and if we expand out to 4 weeks, he is right on that cusp. He does correlate very well, playing his highest number of snaps last week at over 60% of the snaps and very involved in the red zone. You can include Jerick McKinnon in Patrick Mahomes stacks if you choose. At wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster sub 6K. We've seen his ADOT come way down by like 2 full yards, but when you do that, you boost his floor, right? And specifically, Seattle is like the worst in the league when it comes to completion percentage allowed on low ADOT throws. They don't guard on the line of scrimmage very well. They aspire to be a bend but don't break defense. They don't want to get beat over the top, so they let you catch the ball short. And that's where Juju Smith-Schuster has operated the last 3 weeks, 8 out of 6.4 versus the first 12 weeks, where his average depth of target was 8.4 or something along those lines, like very close. If I'm wrong by like a decimal. I'm not going to use Kadarius Toney. Yes, he was back last week. He played like 5 snaps. It may expand. I'm not going to be betting on that. We saw Marquez Valdez-Scantling do a whole bunch of cardio and get rewarded finally last week with a touchdown on a short throw. You can include him. I would not prioritize him in those stacks. You can play around with Watson or Moore, whatever you want. They do have kind of a full stacked battle station at this point. And Travis Kelce is going to be difficult if you're going to stack with Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be difficult to get to Mahomes and Kelce just because of the pricing elsewhere to get optimal. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying you're just not going to be very comfortable with your lineup if and when you do that with Travis Kelce. It's possible, though, and it is something that when it hits really, really hard. And because of how much of a separator the tight end position can be when it comes to fantasy scoring, as most tight ends score you between like 7 and 11 points on the week, getting a guy like Kelce who averages 21, if he has an above average week where he scores 26, 27, it acts as a major separator for your lineups versus the people who do not pay up. And it is a massive pay up to get to Travis Kelce here in week 16. Gardner Minshew. Value is tough to come by this week, but Gardner Minshew is easily the best value on the board, regardless of position. In the games that he has started at quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles the last couple of years, averaging over 17 DraftKings points per game. He is a very capable backup who has the ability to run the football and is a very good passer of the football as well. And when you plug him in behind this great offensive line with a week to know that he is going to be the starter so that they can game plan accordingly with guys like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, now a healthy Dallas Goedert, he is certainly in play to be double stacked in this game as they are underdogs playing in a weather-controlled environment at Jerry World. A.J. Brown, we know who he is. We know he's great. He's ridiculous. He's a monster. Devontae Smith. I don't know if this is going to sustain. I hope that it does. I'm a big believer in Devontae Smith. I think that the kid can play some football exceptionally well. And as he gets to operate as that second guy, much like Jalen Waddle does in Miami, he has really thrived in the absence of Dallas Goedert. But now we have Dallas Goedert back, active, ready to go. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Devontae Smith. I think that Devontae Smith now becomes a great GPP play because most people I think that I give people credit because I play high stakes, and a lot of people at high stakes are extremely well informed and shift where the public doesn't always shift. I think in the lower stakes tournaments, people are still going to ride Devontae Smith looking at the game log and saying, well, look, he just gets 8 targets a game now. And he may get 8 targets this week. He also may get 4, which we've seen happen in the games where Dallas Goedert was there. His target rate goes way up to over 30% of the target market share in those weeks right here where Dallas Goedert was gone, versus the other weeks where, like, yeah, he had an 11 target and a 12 target week in there, but like we also had 4, 5, and like there's just a lot of mouths to feed in those situations. So he's a little bit more of a wild card. I think he may be more owned in lower stakes than he will be in higher stakes. I think Goddard is going to be a very contrarian option at the tight end position. And if you wanted to get a little bit of value at 3,600, Quez Watkins has seen an increased role in the games where Goddard is out and has played well enough, in my opinion, to still be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets. And as they project to play from behind in this one with Dallas installed as 5.5-point favorites, they may just have to do so, but don't expect the same amount of routes run as he ran with Dallas Goedert out. Our puke stack of the week is Syndrome himself from your favorite Pixar movie, The Incredibles, Sammy Darnold. He hasn't scored a lot of points. 13, 11.8, 16.8. But the Detroit defense doesn't die. They multiply your fantasy earnings every single week. They have been terrible. They are not a good defense. Jared Goff has not played well when he has played outside, not in the dome, has played on the road. Much greater opportunity for shorter fields for Sam Darnold. A path to massive value is Sam Darnold. And the Detroit defense is one that is very tough against running backs and has turned into one of the top pass funnels in the league. I'm okay with Sammy D as a puke stack option, especially considering that DJ Moore has upside in the passing game in this game. We saw Terrace Marshall look pretty good. He's a value option. I am not allowed to say the name, but like, he may do a thing. If you'd rather go with skinny stacks here, I'm totally okay with going with skinny Darnold stacks here, specifically to get you to like a bring back play like Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side, to get a couple of value options correlated in this spot against a team that really, really struggles to stop everyone defensively. Let's head over to the Fantasy Labs lineup builder. We'll take a look at the rules that I kind of build. One, the general rule, keep yourself under 130% ownership. By position, I pair my quarterback with exactly 2 wide receivers on the other team. You can pair your wide receiver with one of the running back, wide receiver, tight ends on the other team. This is how I build my bring back and secondary stacks. Don't put the running backs on the same team. We can exclude Kansas City from this, which would allow for Jerick McKinnon to be in those stacks. Limit to at most one running back from the same team unless they're paired with that quarterback, right? I don't just want to have multiple value plays that aren't correlated with the quarterback on that team. Pair your wide receiver. This is a multiple rule. I don't need to have this one in there. And then we'll go over to the custom rules, and we're going to force at least one player at running back or wide receiver where the projected ownership is less than, let's say, 12% because it's a shorter slate. We'll apply these settings. We'll generate these rules. Go check out all the great tools and projections for NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, golf, NHL at smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. Will get you a discounted membership. The 8-month membership to Fantasy Labs is the best discount, the best value that they have, and it'll take you all the way up to the next football season. Do not think that you're just going to go to the site, run a vanilla thing in the optimizer and just print money. It's not going to work like that. It's a tool to help save you time, and you got to work on your correlations, your combinations, and all of the different things that you have to get the lineups and the exposures that you want in your lineup. So I wish you the best of luck this week, and look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.